talked in advance a bit about the club culture today, and you said that there's a lot of nostalgia and a lot of looking backward now in the techno scene, electronic music scene. Is this maybe also a motivation to find now a new narrative for and looking forward in the electronic music scene?
I mean, as Hannes said, more or less, I think the nostalgia part of it alone doesn't bring us anywhere. It's nice to hear the stories from back in the days, but it's not really, doesn't have an energy as if you don't reflect it and transport it. And I don't know, in our way, of course, we didn't reflect first and then we decided to do this or that. We just developed in a certain way and then it fitted somehow together. And then when you start to reflect on it, you see like, yes, somehow, yeah. I think for me, club is a social space where people come together, and I don't want that it's a homogeneous place where the same people come together, because it's becoming much more interesting when you bring different people together. And it's also becoming, for us, it's interesting to collaborate in a musical way and also improvise with people from other backgrounds, because then we get inspiration from an outside context. And I think that is really an energy that the club culture can have. Not necessarily, but it can have it, and then it fascinates me still.
And how has been the experiences in, I think, we have never been at places like Kabul or something like that, where I think you have been and worked, and also in Karachi. And how have been the experiences there?
I mean, we are very lucky that we had the chance to visit all these places, and all these projects are funded by Goethe Institute. So we definitely had a full freedom of what we do there. There was no point of what we have to do when we've been to Kabul. It was just like a journey to put an eye on the electronic music scene of South Asia. So we had this whole region we traveled, and then in the end we just said like, okay, there's something happening there, maybe we can do a project like this. And Kabul, of course, it was a super experience personally, and it was super nice to meet people there. But of course, this is kind of an extreme you had, and it's good to see how politics work, how cliches work, how like your picture is totally different than what is happening actually there, and to see all the expats who make a lot of money in this. But it was different than the projects we did, for example, in Karachi, because in Karachi we created like a 2 weeks project. We've been there 2 times, curated the people who be part of this. It's electronic music, so it's not like traditional Pakistan music mixed with electronic. It's really all people from Pakistan, and also we had 2 girls from Pakistan, one super great artist from Europe, female artist, so it was gender mixed, and like, but it's all electronic musicians, which is not what you expect when you go to Pakistan. This is also important for us, not to focus on the exotic thing. You go to Africa or to Pakistan and then you use tablas or something, which most of the European people expect if you bring your music from there. And it was great because we created a space where we had the chance to work for 2 weeks in a totally free environment with super interesting artists. And I mean, this is the key thing in all the projects we did, that the artists just have a space without any pressure to just to just work on the music and exchange. And this is mainly what we do, creating the projects, to think about a room where there's no pressure, where there's no goal, mainly where it's just about like putting people together and giving them the freedom to exchange through music.
Holly, how important is the collaborative thing for your music?
It's very important. It's crucial. I collaborate all the time. It started out, I guess I started out working with other people, and then when I started releasing recorded music, I really wanted it to be a solo endeavor. One of the reasons behind that is often when women collaborate with men, people make assumptions about what the woman is doing. So I wanted to be very clear about what I was doing, so I wanted to release some solo records first. But I really do enjoy working with other people, and so at some point you kind of have to be like, well, what do you want to do? And you can't just work by yourself because you're afraid that other people are going to make assumptions about you. So now I'm actually working with a lot of different people. With Platform, I collaborated with a whole myriad of people. One of the things that I think about a lot, especially in music, and it kind of speaks to what we're talking about here about like community. The music world really likes to have like this kind of like genius figure or this like messiah figure or something that we all celebrate, but really there's like, so many people that go into making a really good record, and so that's what I was kind of trying to do with Platform, is I was trying to, not just highlight collaborators like people who are writing texts with me or collaborating on music, but also people whose work I had read that inspired a piece, because really it's like this whole kind of like messy stew of ideas that people are sharing together, that's where new work comes out of. It's not like, you're like on a mountain and like all the, it's like it comes from a discussion, it comes from your community, it comes from other people's research, and so I was kind of trying to shine some light on that in a way, and to various degrees of success. I think it's really hard for the music press to deal with that, because they're like, no, but I want to know what you had for breakfast, and you're like, no, I want to tell you about this book I was reading, So sometimes that could be a struggle, but yeah, it's kind of like an ongoing learning experience.
And in Platform, I think there was that topic surveillance that you had, or even in the EP before, I think. When you think of your topics, you have is that maybe also a motivation for you, that you say I want to say things now about surveillance and how is the relation between man and machine, woman and machine? Is that a motivation for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that came about pretty organically. I've been performing with my laptop for a while, and I've been a big advocate for creating your own digital instruments and tools and kind of making your own world. And I think after spending several years doing that, and spending so much intimate time with my machine and with my phone, and then kind of learning about like the Snowden leaks, and kind of learning about the surveillance infrastructure in the States and also in the UK, less so in Germany, fortunately. But yeah, I just started to kind of think critically about my my tools and the things that I was using. I think it's really important. Like most of the people here are probably tech enthusiasts in some way or another. And I think it's really important that we maintain kind of a critical focus, like, not just be kind of like poster children for like tech demo, you know what I mean?
I found it interesting that you mentioned, I think, that you see computers or laptops as a part of our bodies. That reminds me a bit of maybe the Marshall McLuhan and William Burroughs, that the machines are extensions of our bodies. So when you think about how our relationship is now to machines, what do you think? What do you think is the point at the moment?
Well, I think there was a period where we were kind of seeing this dichotomy, like man versus machine or woman versus machine, and I think the further the tools come along and the more we use them, they really do kind of become a part of us or an extension of us. And I also mean that in terms of like how we use the internet and social media, and how these become kind of like digital parts of ourselves that really are emotional parts of ourselves, and that's why it feels so invasive when you know that somebody's been reading your emails, or if you know that like Twitter would just give away all of your private messages if the NSA asked for them. That's why that feels so personal, because it's a it's a part of your emotional self. Yeah, and I think that will just become more and more integrated. It's funny because a lot of people, like everyone's talking about AI now, and it's all like, oh, like, will the AI be benevolent or whatever? And it's like, it probably won't be like humans versus AI. It'll be like an embedded AI, you know, so it's like us versus ourselves, or like us versus like the next version of ourselves. So yeah, I think that it's becoming more and more, technology is just becoming more and more integrated into our emotional selves, and I think that's why we have to maintain kind of like a critical perspective and lens and really think these things through instead of just like jumping in full.
Alissa, you work a lot with machines as well, with synthesizer. And maybe you can just tell us, you're doing these workshops, and the synthesizers, the working with analog synthesizers is a very, normally a very simple way to make music and to experience music. Do we have to establish that more in maybe in education, in schools, in kindergartens or something like that?
I think that would be great if we did incorporate it into schools, especially because technology is already a part of our lives and our practice. So a lot of people who come into the synth library, when I do the intros, I always ask what experience, if any, people have with synthesis and what their background is. And most people have played with an iPhone app that is a synthesizer or some other thing, but they don't know what the actual parts do or the meaning of how and why they're composing music, so they're not able to do it as intentionally. So I think that if people are going to be exploring these technologies, the more they know, the better they can turn a critical eye to these things and have a real opinion on the products and things that they're consuming and creating.
And we talk about collaborations. There's, I think, the stereotype that the people at the synthesizers are the nerds and geeks that are working for themselves all the time. What would you say? Is it is it like this? No, it isn't, I think.
No, that's not really my experience at the synth library anyway, and at a lot of places. I think that modular synthesizers are a really collaborative instrument in and of themselves. And with the Eurorack format things, usually you'll have a bunch of different brands, and there's preamp modules, so you could play other instruments or play with other people. And I often see people in the synth library sitting together on one big synth, making patches together, and maybe someone knows more about beats and maybe someone knows more about filters or something else, and they'll kind of help each other and work through things and show each other things, and huge leaps are made that way. I see someone tell someone one bit of information they have, and that was the one bit the other person needed to go really far. And I think that collaboration in music especially is really important, because I see music as a participatory art form, maybe more than poetry or some other art forms. There's a history, I think, of people getting together and making music and playing music together, and I don't see why synths should be any different.
Do you think that it's political? That it's political, that thing that you're doing with the synth library?
Probably. I think that most things are political because nothing stands just on its own, and I believe in intersectionality, and that at any given point a person is in between a lot of worlds, and one of them is a political world.
Alec, Holly mentioned we mentioned the relationship between man, woman, and machine, and I think the digital era is for you an important topic as well. And I think you I read an old interview with a colleague of mine, and you said the digital era is about to start now. It hasn't already begun. It was 2015, I think.
I thought it was 1992 or something.
No, it was 2 years ago.
Okay, well, what context? Okay, go on. I think you got the quote wrong. Maybe.
No.
Well, just go on. I think you. Okay.
No, maybe.
I don't think I said that, but I think I know what you mean. I think what I said was that I think the real the musical revolution in the digital age is still coming, or something like that. Or maybe you talk about something else, but.
I think you,
in 2015, I was really obsessed with it, so I think maybe I said this. But go on.
Okay, maybe I
because
got the quote
digital
wrong,
era is
but
about
I think
to start. Like I'm not that stupid. So.
No. Of course, it has already started. That's clear. But I think you said something like that. That we now know how to deal with the digital era. But maybe in the future we learn what the digital era will be for or will mean for humanity or something.
Okay, I don't know.
You
Is
don't-
this
you
in
don't know
German?
that.
Or this doesn't sound like me. Are you
No?
sure? That was it a call to arms? Or, like,
No,
I mean,
but is
usually
that
okay.
is that a topic that at the moment that is important for you and for your work?
I mean, the thing is that when I started, we came out of that early like cyberpunk scene or movement or whatever you want to call it. And so at the time, the musicians and the hacker community, for example, in Berlin, was a very small scene. I mean, it was a tiny scene. If you go back to like, let's say, 1989 or something, to the first acid house parties, you would have maybe 150 people, and it would be very famous DJs a couple of years later, or like, so it was that small. And then you have a lot of people in the hacking community who became, huge names or something. So this belonged together because like if the software was always so buggy, you needed people to, to fix some stuff or to come up with certain ways that you wanted something to run on this computer or whatever. So, and the way I understood music was always, it has to be programmed. I think this is maybe the big conflict between me and a lot of the traditional musicians, especially at the time. I mean, for example, like the first concerts we had, because we were just running the show on an Atari computer and one drum machine and a very simple sampler, with like, I think 5 seconds of sampling time. And there were fights, punks were so offended. I mean, at the raves, they were offended because what we were saying, the political message. People were really angry. They were like, you talk about neo-Nazis attacking asylum homes, and this doesn't belong here. We want to have a good time. You're killing the vibe, all this stuff. So, but then so we were like, okay, you hate us. We go to the squats and to the punk places, and there we were the capitalist enemy, the people who use a machine. Like how dare you kill the jobs? This machine. This should be like 3 drummers. A human being can't even play this beat. How dare you? And seriously, it sounds like funny, but it was when you have a mob of people you think you have something in common with, and they hate you because you use a certain tool, then it's a different scenario. So, okay, then it took a couple of years, and people slowly got it. They were like, okay, these are the good guys. And also because they saw the neo-Nazis were attacking us, and we did this record, Hunt Down the Nazis, which was like the first anti-Nazi techno record.
And
you are the journalist.
And
you
the
tell
start
me.
of Atari Teenage, right? I think. The
Yeah,
first
we
one.
formed the group. It was like a manufactured kind of group. We were like, okay, we need to fight fascism with music. We are tired of the street fights. We had this. It leads to the same results, and it's maybe a good message to Antifa in America right now. You don't change somebody's mind with that, you know? I mean, I remember these scenarios. You know, it's always, sometimes if you are in the majority and there's like a horrible person, a Nazi skinhead who tells you all these things, like all Jews should be gassed to death and this and that. And then there's this, he's on the ground and you feel this empathy. And you know, when I was 16, I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, we can do this and beat each other all the time. We won't achieve any change because that person will not change, you know? So we decided, let's use computers, let's use our minds, you know, spread the message, make people aware of that. And in the 90s, a lot of the surveillance stuff that we talked about, because I think it became almost like a lot of younger hackers now listen to these old records also and go, hey, you said this, and this is exactly what's going on. You know, why some people in the 90s were always like, yeah, you're paranoid, this will never happen, you know, how can this happen, you know, also Silicon Valley, these are the good guys, you know, it's the revolution, like, you know, everybody can be a star on YouTube and on Facebook. And I mean, we heard the lies, right? I mean, we heard this over and over again. They still tell this lie, and people believe it. You know, and it's very sad. When you look at what this actually has produced, it's, in my opinion, the worst mob mentality. We saw this last year, I think, in the election in the US. We see it in Europe. It is fast clicks, like the most popular person, the loudest clown is getting the biggest support or feedback or whatever you want to call it. If you just look, let's say, at educational modular synth videos, somebody blows up on YouTube, it has very low numbers. and in the world that we imagined, maybe in the 90s or even a little later, we hoped that a lot of people would become really interested in this. And I don't want to be unfair. People get knowledge from this stuff too, but still, somebody smearing peanut butter in his face or whatever is getting 30 million views, and you have the smartest person in the synth scene explaining something really great about music and no one cares. But they consume music every day. You know, that's, I think, the thing. It's not that we are all people who do something that is so strange and so far out there, like that it's just a small amount of people. I mean, Hollywood blockbusters are using modular synth, right? I mean, the soundtrack. So it is not something, you know, that only the freaks somewhere do, you know. But people, I think they should care about this. What are they actually consuming? How is this made? Can they maybe use it, you know, for themselves to understand it? Because I think what I hate a bit, I think every electronic musician has gone through this, is this, you stand there on stage maybe, right? And you have any setup, you're like the magician, right? With this box. And a lot of the people are like, I don't know, is this Richard James? Is it Aphex Twin? Is it Tiesto? Is it awful? What is this person actually doing? You know, I mean, I think we see a lot of these types of people, and they still react to the traditional musician with the guitar or like an instrument that they kind of understand. I mean, I think people who go into a classical music concert, most people, you know, from the bourgeoisie or whatever, they don't really understand how it's done. But they think these people work hard, it's worth my money, you know? And so, I think the tradition of the electronic musician is always, there's always this doubt. Is this playback? Is this fake? And I think, I mean, I've witnessed it in the 90s and the decade after, and I guess you've been confronted with this too, right? I mean, female electronic musicians. What is she doing? You know, it must be her boyfriend, right? I mean, no, I mean, I don't know if you ever came across this, but this is like the standard thing. I mean, like female DJs go through this too. You know, it must be somewhere. But I think it's not only a sexist thing. I think it's this weird myth that the musician is not an individual It's not the mind that produces the ideas. It comes from somewhere else. You know, it's like a god or the drugs or it's like some myth. This person can't do this. It's not, you know, it's this.
Yeah, I think Alissa, you told me in advance that you made such experiences that, yeah, you always have experienced sexist comments and stuff like that. Maybe you can talk a bit about that. What the motivation is then to maybe doing these workshops and having these kids and women and non-binary people. And that they become more self-conscious, maybe.
Yeah, so I think everyone is a little bit self-conscious or shy, or most people I know are, and so a little sexist comment here or there might hurt even more if you're already feeling self-conscious or upset in some way. And it might seem silly, but I believe that words are really powerful, and that people do their best work when they feel comfortable. So creating spaces where you know that someone won't slip in an offhanded comment to undermine someone right as they start to feel comfortable or come into themselves makes a really big difference for me, and I think for a lot of people. I think just looking around a room that you're in and knowing for sure, okay, people believe in me, they're not going to doubt me, they're not assuming someone else made the sound or that I didn't patch this or whatever it is, goes a really long way. And I think that there's sexism everywhere because it's a whole system issue and not just a problem for electronic music or for synthesizers or for anything. But maybe that problem gets amplified as you go further and further into a fringe where maybe just, no one knows anything about a modular synth or what it's supposed to sound like, so it's easier to make biased assumptions.
But has it become even worse in the recent years in the electronic music scene?
I don't know. I don't think so. But also, I'm not sure how you would judge a whole history and its evolution. And I'm so young that I wasn't really there for the early part of electronic music, and I don't know what those women and people went through. So I can't really say. Yeah.
I feel like it's gotten better. I mean, I don't know, just from touring, I feel like when I first started touring, I would go play and then I would go hang out in my hotel room by myself because I felt like a freak in the backstage. Like, there was no one to talk to, and like it was all these like crews of dudes, and I was just like, okay, I guess I'll just go like watch TV in the hotel. And of course it's better now because I can tour with people, like I perform with people, and it always helps to have like your crew with you or whatever. But also I'm just seeing different people represented on festival stages, and honestly it's the only thing that would save or keep me interested in the music, because if it's like the same person over and over playing the same music, I mean, that's just frankly really boring. So to have like a diverse lineup is really what keeps the music interesting, and I think it's getting better. I mean, obviously, like there's a long way to go, but I've definitely seen, you know, a lot of people have been doing infrastructural work towards that. There's female pressure. They have a database. So yeah, female pressure. So you know, promoters can't be like, well, I just couldn't find a woman. They just don't exist. They're like, no, we have a data bank right here. Like you can look them up. And there's also like, like Disc Woman in New York. They're doing a lot of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think it's something that really requires organization. And there's like, kind of like having an issue with something and wanting things to change, and then there's like getting together with other people who feel the same, and being like, okay, how can we change this together? And that's what's been really inspiring about those two groups in particular, is that they've really organized and been like, okay, how are we going to change this? And it actually did change something.
Maybe Hannes and Andi, we talked about that topic before, so maybe you can say What are your experiences in the Berlin music scene at the moment concerning this topic, the gender equality and stuff like that?
I think it's a complex question. I mean, I see progress, of course. I see a lot of really good female artists playing, and for example, I just read about that Mint stopped their parties, and they said the goal is to do this Mint parties with female DJs only until they see a progress. And I read about the last party that they now feel there is a progress, so they can just keep their artist lives again and not focus only on these women parties, which I thought there must be a progress. And I see a lot of good female artists, but I don't really see a change in the way a lot of male artists look at female artists, especially like the big players who are around, and maybe also who have fear that they lose their standing or something if there also now women came. I mean, it's already hard to keep the #1 place in this man's world, and then now maybe they scared. I don't know. It was very strange to listen to some of the talks, because I see this progress. I'm really happy, and we also find a lot of good female artists to include in our projects. We book them to our parties, and I love to be like in a gender mixed up creative space, because it gives it's different sides who come into.
Yeah, but maybe is that scene that you are in like an independent scene, DIY scene? Maybe this is a bubble or something like that.
Of course, the scene is a bubble. I mean, I think
That's the
more or less
point,
it's
right?
the same thing in different term for the same thing. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it is a bubble, but it is, I would say, a transforming bubble, and we are. I don't know. In our case,
Hannes mentioned the big players in the, and maybe we are here on another level talking. Maybe I'm not sure how it could be.
I think it's the same level. For me, it was just very shocking that to see that everything we always talking about in panels and discussions, which I never experienced, that it's there. For me, it was first shocking to hear man DJs talking like this, and then on the second, it's very strange to hear them at this moment talking like this. I mean, I think there's a big progress, but still there's like, and I don't think this is another scene. I think it was shocking because it's part of my scene.
How do you react on this?
It was too much, man. I just keep quiet and made my thoughts. And now I talk. I don't say names, but I talk about it in public. That's how I react. But it was not a place to get into a discussion in this moment.
Okay. What I find interesting concerning you is that you, when you have been to countries like Pakistan and Afghanistan, I mentioned, Nigeria and all this. How was it there with the woman in music?
I think it was very interesting because, first of all, it's always interesting for you to change your perspective about all these countries we worked with. They were different than we expected, and then the image of what you get here, because the image you get is somehow it's not a neutral image that you get. First of all, what Hannes said before, because even in a very, like, say, expert music scene, it's a lot about the exotism thing that you need. Okay, you want to work with African artists, but at least they have to look kind of African, and then you can present, because then it's interesting if they're, I don't know, just like with jeans and shirt, then, you know, and that is a main part. And in many societies, like especially in Karachi, you see that there is there is a small scene that makes very interesting music, and they come from a mainly middle-class background, and there's also a lot of female artists involved that get a lot of support from the parents that come from a generation before the country changed into this more, I say, strict and fundamentalistic way, and they support their kids. They also say, do it. And one of the most interesting artists, I would say, from the project in Karachi, Ramsha Shakir, she's making...
How's she called?
Ramsha Shakir. She makes like drone ambient music with her guitar and feedbacks, and you just wouldn't think about that happening in Pakistan.
And you have done something together.
She was always, like, we talked about it, and she was super supported by her father and by her parents, like, since she's small. And you wouldn't expect it if you go to Pakistan, that there's families teaching their female kids and support them if they want to get like an experimental musician who's doing crazy drones. I mean, if the boy does it, okay, maybe, but you wouldn't expect it if it's the girl doing it.
And on Karachi Files, you have worked with her together? Or?
Yeah.
On Karachi Files,
Yeah,
you have worked with her?
She's on almost every track of this record.
Kind of doing the mood,
Yeah.
which is going through the whole record with her.
I would say everywhere. I mean, I think this experience in Kabul was quite short that we had, and it was also for many reasons more complicated than other places. But I don't know, in Angola, in all African there is you find very amazing female artists.
But to be honest,
and
like
you find a lot of interesting music. I also think that it's a bit of this, there's still a bit of, let's say, arrogant European perspective that everything interesting comes from Berlin, New York, or London. And I think also there's a lot of boring stuff coming from there. And I was always very fascinated and inspired about what's happening in places where you don't think that things happen.
Is this maybe... Holly, is this maybe also a motivation? I think you have done a lot of tours the last recent years, and you broke through the last year, so you came with a lot across. So, is this for you a motivation that you see the world, that you party with a lot of different people, different cultures, and what are your experiences there?
I mean, I feel really fortunate to be able to tour as much as I do, but it's also, it's kind of like this double-edged sword. Like, it's amazing that you get to travel so much, but often you're kind of just there for one night. And I always feel really conflicted about that, just kind of like, I hate it when it's just this thing, like you come in from out of town, and it's like, show your thing and then leave. Like, it's so much better when you're at least like on a bill with somebody local, and you can like have time to hang out and like figure out what's going on locally and maybe have an extra night there or something. I think it's really important that we're not just kind of like, you know, showing up and like dropping this stuff and not having an exchange. But that's really hard because that's not built into the like economics of the touring model, you know. So you kind of have to build that in yourself. But yeah, I mean, of course, it's like traveling around. I you know, wherever we go, I'm always asking people about, you know, local politics and local perspectives about things, and it really does give you, you know, you feel like you're able to just kind of have this like more kind of holistic, on the ground understanding of what people are talking about, and that's such a privilege to be able to do that. So yeah, of course, that finds its way into the work.
What was the strangest experiences you have had in the recent years?
Strangest touring experience? Oh God, I don't know.
We have time. We have a lot of time.
I don't know. I'll have to think about that one. Anyone else? Strange touring experiences?
Oh, no. I think this is like...
Yeah.
I'm sure you have something.
Never.
We talk about this later at the bar. I think.
Okay, you can all come to the bar later.
Actually, I have one funny story.
Okay.
Speaking of like sexism, it actually wasn't. It wasn't towards me. It was towards my partner. we were in Texas, and there was this like really angry sound engineer who got into like a verbal fight with my partner, who was out in the audience trying to help me adjust. Like he was my ears, my virtual ears in the audience, and they got into like a shouting match for the first time ever. Like that I've never had that where I've like really like fought with the sound engineer, but I thought it was funny because he was bullying him. He was like yelling at him, and like Matt would be like, you know, can you turn up the kick? And he would like crank it up and be like, is that loud enough for you, huh? Like was just like being like such an asshole. It was really good, but I didn't hear any of it going on because I was just on stage like do. So yeah, that was one really kind of like funny / shitty experience. Oh, and then the other people on stage were like, can you please report him to the festival? Because he's been so mean to us all day, like all of the production managers and everything. So yeah, we told on him and he got in trouble.
So I think we have to come to an end now, and yeah,
We have time.
we want to go to the bar and talk about tour experiences, I think, and strange tour experiences.
We want to talk about context in music and all this stuff, I think, more than tour experiences. Maybe this we do much later.
Yeah. But maybe we start with the Teichmann brothers. You have done a lot with the Goethe-Institut the last years. What will come now, and what will be up now for you?
Yeah, I mean, we started last year after all these years of getting all these impressions. We wanted to start something like a label again, but also something that brings out all this, how I say, different, various, intercultural, but also more experimental stuff, like a place that, how I say,
Platform.
bundles, huh?
A platform.
A platform, yes. Platform for all these inspirations. And we just started with it, and it's called No Land. You can check it out. And since we had this techno label for 8 years, from the 90s till the middle, and we got really kind of bored with doing, or it was strange. We stopped this label because somehow it was nothing interesting happened. Now we are really excited again, and we have so many amazing artists from India, from Pakistan, Africans, different countries, and I'm really happy that somehow to create something that also maybe hopefully creates a network of like a global underground synopsis of special music.
Networking is for you, I think, the motivation to do music, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But also we have to say on this label we will release our next album soon in the next month. We also started a new techno label because we got bored about having an album label now. So we just released an African collaboration with a Nigerian drummer on our new 12-inch label. Like it's more club focused. Noland is more like an album label now, like the high culture, presenting something real, and we also want to present something trashy, quickly done, and just put it out to people. But like we're also doing a kids workshop tomorrow morning, from 10 years old to maybe 16 or 17 years old. So if somebody want to send his kids, there's 3 workshops tomorrow at 10, and we will play at the Seebühne tomorrow at 6. Then we will have a concert with a classical zither, not sitar, it's zither player next week in a church here in Berlin. And we will play with a jazz band on the X Jazz Festival in 2 weeks. So the next...
Yeah, it's been busy with very different things.
Things
but it's
happen.
Yeah, we can visit a lot of Teichmann concerts in the next time
Yes.
in Berlin. That's good. Alec, the last thing you did, I think, was this Volt soundtrack of this dystopian film. And what will come now? What are you working on? What can come now?
This was like last year, but it's true. Like the movie came out in February, and the vinyl record too. There's a few things. I wrote a music piece for an installation that is showing tomorrow at Spectrum. You know, it's for this focal opacity installation about the dark web. and my music is kind of like playing in the background the whole time. I just got a text that the curator was really angry because he thinks the music disturbs the whole gallery or something, but it's about the dark web, you know. So I don't know, maybe I have to go there after this and check it out. But so I think everybody is running into these problems with authorities who don't want to give you, they want to like crush you, and they want to stop you from getting to your goal, you know? So, okay, but then there's a thing, yeah, there's a lot of things, like that I'm doing a collaboration for the 50 years anniversary of Silver Apples of the Moon with Martin Subotnick, and so we're going to work on this in May. We already started working on this, but we're going to do more work in May on this. So this is really exciting stuff. A Thai Teenage Riot shows, you know, I mean, the political atmosphere now. I mean, we keep getting these messages, where are you? We need you, you know? So I was like, well, you got the songs, go for it, you know? It's, but I think, yeah, there's so much stuff I think that needs to be said and needs to be done. So I'm positive about the future. So.
Will we see a teenage riot in the next time in Berlin as well?
In Berlin, I think we have something planned in, I think, December. Or something, but we will still announce it. Maybe I made a huge mistake now by talking about it.
We were looking forward to that.
The NSA knows anyway, so who cares?
Okay, we'll ask them. Alissa, what are your plans with Synth Library and with Women's Beat League? That's, I think,
another group together in S1, yeah. The Synth Library just moved buildings, and actually all of our really, really wonderful volunteers are redoing floors and ceilings while I tour Europe right now. So when I get back, we'll be moving into a much bigger space, and we can incorporate all of the Women's Beat League and DJ gear into the Synth Library collection as well, which will be exciting because up until now, Women's Beat League has been exclusively for female-identified people, and we're excited to be able to incorporate the gear and have everyone access it at times too. We're going to keep offering workshops and expanding, and I hope that people everywhere see that it's possible to do a synth library, and if anyone wants to make one in their city and ever has some questions, you can ask me some within reason, and I would love to see synth libraries everywhere. So we're going to keep expanding where we are, and hopefully other people will do it too.
Okay, Holly, we're waiting for a new album from you.
I'm working on it. It takes a while. Yeah, so I'm kind of like hopefully finishing an album in the next couple months. I've been working on it since I moved here. I have a performance of some of that material at the end of May in Vienna, Wiener Festwoche, right? Right, that's what it's called?
Wiener Festwoche?
Yeah, Wiener Festwoche. Yeah, which is an amazing festival. Their curatorial lineup looks awesome, so I'm really excited about that. And then also my partner and I are working on some software projects together. We've both become really interested in kind of infrastructural issues and publishing, and yeah, so nothing to announce on that yet, but that's also what we're kind of like working on always in the background. So hopefully we'll have something to share in the next year with that.
Okay, then thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Hannes. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Alissa. Thank you, Alec. And thank you, Andi.